Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the LG G4s, also in some region known as the LG Beat. I won't make a fully detailed review as usually though, even though I like to talk about all the details, because this device was, I think, the first phone that made me angry for a few reasons, but I will go into that after talking about the good stuff, because just judging from the specs alone, this device seems to be quite decent. We have a Snapdragon 615, we have a 1080p 5.2 inch display, we have an 8 megapixel camera, we have 8 gigabytes of storage, which isn't a lot, but we have the SD card slot. In terms of weight and height, it is also quite nice, because if you compare it with another 5.2 inch, you can see it is shorter. It is pretty much the same width, a little bit thicker, but it doesn't feel as thick because I really like these amazing curves here. This curve has been done so great because it sits so amazingly comfortable in the hand. It is maybe not as grippy as the lower end models like the Leon, Magna or the Spirit, because it seems to have some kind of slightly glossy coated finish that the other ones didn't, because we still have the aluminum brushed finish, but we also have the diamond back pattern, which doesn't seem to be super strong, as you can see, because we have some scratches, but it maybe isn't as grippy, but therefore it is super comfortable and smooth in the hand. So just in terms of feel in the hand, it is amazing, and this is what makes me angry, because I thought at first when I saw the specs of this device that maybe this could have been a great phone, but it isn't. Just in terms of design, there's nothing wrong. We still have the power button on the back, but we have double tap to wake and double tap to sleep, which usually works out fine. Not quite sure why it doesn't right now. Let's try it once again. So it flakes a little bit, but maybe because it's so for oily hands. But it works usually. I don't like the power button so much. I still prefer it on the side, but the volume rocker is nice. The camera is good. The placement here of the headphone jack is okay with the microphone, micro USB at the back, and inside there's also all the good stuff that we already know from LG, because if we open it up, still SD card slot with the SIM, removable battery, so all the good stuff is here, and there is nothing wrong with the design. But before I'm going to talk about the other bad stuff, let's get into the other good stuff, because the display is a really nice one. Just check it for sure, because we have a 1080p. It's maybe not the brightest one, so outdoor visibility was a little bit limited, but it is still a very great screen. Great viewing angles, very nice colors, a good white point, a little bit too warm, but also no issue. I would have been really happy with it. Same goes for the sound. It is for some reason though not as good as on the lower end models for some reason, because it is quite a bit lower in terms of volume and it doesn't feel as rich as the other ones did. Just real quick. Don't get me wrong, it would be still good enough for me. I don't have the problem because it is in most cases still loud enough. It just didn't feel as rich for some reason as the lower end models, but it would still have done a fine enough job. Also not the issue. The next thing would be the software. I already talked about it a lot, and I seem to be one of the few persons that doesn't have a problem with the LG skin. I like it actually, and I made a specific video just for that. You can just watch that every time you want to, because I don't want to go into detail. This time I'm using 5.1.1, so we already have the newest version, but in general it's the same that I did when I reviewed it on the LG Spirit. We have all the good stuff like changeable or customizable navigation bar, quick settings, lock screen, all the good stuff is there. Also not the problem. I like the LG skin, at least here. Some people complain about it on the LG G4, where I didn't try it yet, but it is great here. Also the camera, I won't draw any pictures because it just doesn't matter. The 8 megapixel camera is able to provide really nice shots. Also the camera was nice. For a mid-ranger or a slightly higher mid-ranger, the camera would have been totally fine, but let's get to the bad stuff. And that would be the performance, because we're using the Snapdragon 615 that on paper easily can deliver the performance. And I've reviewed it already on the HTC Desires, I think it was a 620, and the performance was fine, but look at this. whenever you use a browser with the old engine, you see this stutters here. And the same goes for the real browser as well. If we go, for example, into naked browser, the performance, as you can see, is just very laggy. If you don't use that and prefer to use Chrome, within Chrome, the performance is fine. As you can see here, things are smooth. Okay, it's just loading, just wait a second. Okay, here it's okay. There is some odd delay though whenever I touch, whenever I want to scroll. But the performance would have been nice. But the thing is, as you saw within Phoenix, and I open a post in a site, it was very laggy. If I go into the app itself though, it is okay. It would have been usable. It lags from time to time, but it is mostly smooth. And the same thing goes for example, Palabra, where I was even more so surprised, because here within it is still smooth and usable. But whenever you open an article, that's the shocking thing here. Look at how unsmooth that is. And this is what disappointed me. The performance was super inconsistent. It was okay within Phoenix, within the app, but whenever you go into a website, it was laggy. Google Plus worked fine. Chrome worked fine. But if you use an older engine, web browser or Palabra or something similar, the performance just was bad. For games it was good enough, but for me, using these apps, it was an issue. If you maybe don't use these apps, you could get away with it, but I still think there are a lot more apps that will have trouble. Other than that, we have 1.5 gigabytes of RAM, and yeah, the RAM management was better than with a 1 gigabyte device, but still far away from a 2 gigabyte device. So in overall, I'm just not happy with the performance. But the last thing that I'm not happy is the battery life, because I think actually this is the worst battery life I've seen on any phone so far. As you can see here, not even 14 hours, 2.5 hours of screen on time. 17 hours, 2 hours of screen on time. 2.5 hours again on one day. Here I only had 1.5, so I'm not completely sure what went wrong there. And once again, slightly more than 2.5 over the course of 18 hours. So as you can already see, the battery life is bad. And especially the standby drain was very, very flaky, because you can use it 10 hours in standby and it will show you like 100%, and you will think everything is fine. Use it for 5 minutes, you're still at maybe 99%, and then it will drop down in your pocket for about 20% in just a few minutes. And this happens also way to the end of the battery, because yesterday I had 15% left. I was on my way home. I thought it would hold up, and by the time I was at home, just in standby, the device was dead. So that's all I have to say about the device, because this is the first phone that I have a hard time recommending. Because I could recommend it if you don't care about great performance, and if you don't care about good battery life, because the feel in hand is great, the camera is great, the display is really, really nice, and the sound would have been totally fine as well. And that maybe makes me so angry, because if you just see it has a nice size, and I really like the feel in the hand so much. So if they would have made it a legit smaller LG G4 Mini with similar internals, or at least optimized performance, because I'm not quite sure what went wrong in terms of performance, because even the browser for me crashed way more often than it ever did, because it is always stable on all my other devices I reviewed it so far. So I am not completely sure. They could fix a lot of that in terms of performance with an update, but I don't think it will happen, because we already have 5.1.1. And then there's still the small battery with 2300 milliamps of battery. With a 615 that is known to be a little bit of a battery hog, this wouldn't just work out. Okay, you can replace the battery and then it is fine, but still, you charge about 2.5 hours for a full charge, and you can use it for 2.5 hours. So that is no good ratio. So once again, I am angry about this device, because it could have been a really great device, but just because of performance that for some people could be good enough. But then there's the battery life. So sadly, I can't recommend it. I have just 2 issues with it. The rest is great, but these 2 issues are just deal breakers. So that's it for my review of the LG G4s, also known as the LG Beat. I hope this video was still helpful to you, because I would have so wished that this device would have been what it could have been. Okay, but once again, leave me a like, subscribe to my channel, and if you have anything else to say, just leave it down in the comments. Okay, until next time, bye.